Hi everyone, it's Elise from Kit and Clowder, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a video on how I do a different kind of background shading around my images. The style that I'm going to show you today is a bit more of a watercolor style background. It's not perfect, it's a little bit splodgy and you're getting that watercolor type effect. I've got a sample here of an image that I colored recently which shows the technique. So this is the sort of technique that I'm trying to achieve. So I usually pick about 3 colours and I do use my colourless blender quite heavily in this. So make sure that it's nice and inked up, ready to go. Now the image that I'll be doing the background on today is Craft and Kimmy's Cordelia, which I've already coloured up. And because she's a mermaid, I wanted to do the background shading blue, like she's in the ocean. And then I think this technique works really well because it is a little bit, you get that sort of speckled look at a bit like water, and it is still very imperfect. So the colours that I'm going to be using today are B00, B91, B14 and my blender pen. Okay, so my first step is I've got my lightest colour, which is my B00, and whenever I do this I work in sections as well because I don't really want the ink to dry. And I'm going to be, I'll just show you over here, I'm kind of like dabbing the ink down. So I'm just going to start in the corner here. I'm dabbing down, I'm doing quite a little flick. I'll just bring that up to this part here. Okay, my next step is I'm getting my B91 and I'm doing the same thing, but I'm just laying down this colour where I think the shading would be the darkest. You know, and I'm not really worrying about being too technically correct either. I'm getting my B14 and just adding a few more highlights, more shadows, sorry. Now I'm getting my blender pen and I'm really pushing the ink down. And I'm kind of dabbing and pushing it as I go. And I'm sort of blending out into the white space. I'm laying down a lot of the blender where the darker colours are. Again, blending that out. It'll take a little while to dry, so I'm going to keep going while that's drying, and you'll notice it will change a lot as it dries. So again, going around the image. That was my B00. Now my B91. And my B14. And now I'm grabbing my blender and I'm pressing down quite hard again. Generally it's good to do this before your image is coloured, just in case you make any mistakes and you're not happy with how it turns out. But it can look a little bit funny. So it does always look better when you go over and your image is all coloured up. So that's why I wanted to show you the technique with the image already coloured. So this is a good technique if you're trying to replicate the distress ink look. B91, just doing some blending out. I'm grabbing my colourless blender. You do have to make sure that you press down quite hard when doing this, as you want to get the paper quite wet with the ink. And if you are doing this after you've coloured the image, just be careful that you don't pull out any of the colour into the shadowing. And don't worry if some areas don't blend out 100%. You can go back in after it's dried and alter it a little bit. So I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so once you've gone around your image the whole time, what I then do is I grab my blender pen. So most of around here should have dried by now. So I'm going to go through and I can just get the tip of my blender and make some little splodgy dots over the parts that haven't blended really well. Helps add a little bit more texture and adds to that watercolour look. So if there are any harsh lines that you want to disguise, just do some little dotting over the top. I think it works really well on a under the sea image as it creates like little bubbles. So you start to get some really nice texture. I'm not sure if you can see it a lot in the video. And again, don't worry about being perfect. The whole point of this background is to not be perfect. You can do some really nice perfect shading just with normal blending around your image, but this is just a little bit of a different technique if you're after a different look. And the colours that I like to do this a lot is with a light purple grey. So I like to experiment with my BV000, my BV20 in my blender. You can just do it with your normal greys as well. So you might do a W0 and a W3 in a blender. Get a really nice grey. Just go over the blender and blend over the tips if it's not really blending out in any areas 100%. Just have a little bit of the blue has bled into my image, and this is why it is good to do it after you've coloured it, because if it does blend into the image you can go and just colour over the top. I'm just adding a little bit more extra shading to these shells on top of her head. So this technique can be a little harder to master, so just play around with it and make sure you practice, especially if you're going to do it on an image that you've already coloured. But otherwise, that's her all done. So you can, if you want to colour more of the space, you can extend that blending right out, so you've got more of the colour, more of the white space around her coloured in, like she's under the ocean. But I just really wanted to do a light shading, so I'm thinking about cutting her into a circle, so I don't really want the whole circle coloured blue. If you've got any questions, please just let me know. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.